Hey there, Theresa here from theresamonro.com. I just want to make a video on here and touch base about something really quickly. There's certain vocabulary that, and this is something that I probably should have made a video on some time ago. And so buckle your seatbelts because this one's going to be a little bit interesting for some of you that may seem confused. There are people that follow the spiritual community that are not as enlightened as they could be. There are certain vocabulary and certain phrases that are used incorrectly, that are associated only with a certain agenda. And that is something that the beings of light refer to as the twin flame agenda. There are several different agendas that are of the light, not of the light, here on this particular planet. There's a story that I should probably tell about what's happening on the planet, and in terms of the number of, maybe I should just go ahead and tell that story. I don't know if I want to tell it today, but when I get on and I'm speaking about like the divine masculine and the divine feminine, I'm speaking specifically about rays of light. Now, who I am, I'm a bringer of the rays of light. That is something I've always done. That's something my soul does. People sometimes resonate with, being from a certain star system and that sort of thing. That's because they are of a different lineage. That isn't a lineage that I necessarily come from. So just to help you understand, it has been my soul's job to bring the rays of light to different places in the universe for people that are using them for creation, for healing, for creation of universes, for the planet, and that sort of thing. I represent, there's about 166 beings of light that I work with. There's 15 rays of light that I work with. There's about 100 people on the planet that carry this consciousness that I have, 7 specifically with my frequency from where I'm from. They're also bringers of the rays of light. We're very rare. But something that's starting to irritate me are the projections that's happening from people that identify with the twin flame label. That is something that I was asked to assist with for about 4 months. It ended up going a little overtime. Sorry for the noise in the background. It's like representative of grating of the nerves. So anyway, in that period of time, I put about 3,500 couples into union, like harmonic union, those that were ready to do that. There are some attracted to that label that are not twins, that are just simply obsessed with other humans. Again, that's something that pisses people off, to tell the truth. There's still a couple of people from the good old days that I told, like, I'm sorry, but this person isn't your twin, and I tell the truth, and they still go along, and they're like, hi, I'm just going to dislike all your videos, because they're that angry. And I'm like, if you're behaving like that, you're never going to find the love that you're looking for. Projecting your anger, which is usually something of indicative of certain indigo races, which is our subspecies of the blue rays. There's something of the wisdom that I carry are the different lineages of souls and how they were created. And how some of them were miscreated, and why some of them feel so heavy on this planet and things like that. Because not all of them were created in light, and some carry that fallen Nephilim consciousness with them. Some of them, karmically have decided that that's something that they would do. A lot of people, it's really heavy. There's a reason why people won't work with people that use that label. It's because there's a lot of heaviness and emotions attached to that. So some people have inboxed me and said, oh yeah, you're back doing the twin flame thing. I'm like, no, actually, I've just been guided to speak on the divine masculine, which is the first ray of light, and the divine feminine, which is the third ray of light. So it's important for people to get educated and realize, no, I'm not dipping my toe back in there. There's even one person who does videos that I could feel was angry that I was speaking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Now, those are that person's issues. Again, there's an anger theme here amongst a lot of people that identify with that label. There is something that is very real that is called the false light ascension matrix. And one thing that they do is they infiltrate certain, light-filled missions and agendas on the planet. One is a twin flame agenda. So one of the first things that they asked me to do was to drop that label. Now, and then they've also asked me, and some time ago, which is, why it's like incredibly draining to, speak with people that just want to be powerless Blu-rays and blame the entire time and not accept responsibility. It's like, I'm not on your level. I can't relate to that. I don't want to work with that. There's a reason why we screen for who we work with now with my team. And it's people that have to be in this for the right reasons. There are reasons why those of us were chosen to be channels and have what are called speaker contracts here on this planet. And that's because we come with a purity of heart. We've done our work. Many of us did the work for my particular soul group, have done the work before we even got here. Some of them are on YouTube. I have noticed them. We have reached out to one another. There's 4 of my 7 that I have gotten to meet with. Now, a lot of us are referred to as Melchizedeks, and that's what's different from other people that are, working. We carry the consciousness of Source. These rays of light is Source energy, and it is, separated into different rays of light. So again, if this may not resonate with everybody that's speaking about this, but this is very high level work. This is for the spiritually advanced, and not those that just consider themselves spiritually advanced, but those who truly are. And I always notice it because there's a certain humility, a purity of heart. People that they tend to ask the question, ooh, do I really get to do that? Not the people like, ooh, give me your information so that I can go and run with it. It's like, you have to be able to embody this and be of a frequency that's high enough to embody it. And part of that is why they have set the price for learning about the rays of light to a certain price tag. And there's been a lot of interesting hits on that, because there is some really bad information out there on the rays of light, because that information was hijacked, as with anything else. So you've got the truth and the not truth, because there are agendas that people don't want others to naturally ascend. Now, it just delays it. It isn't something where it ends up winning in the long run, ever. And on top of that, the darkness is always attracted to the light anyway. So, because it is the light. And those who disagree with that, that's just one frame of thought. And people who enjoy dualistic thinking versus polarity thinking. There are universal laws of polarity, but no universal laws of duality. There's a slight difference. So it's sort of like polarity is there's masculine and feminine, and they work together in tandem. Duality is where the masculine is against the feminine. So you see a lot of dualistic tendencies amongst like Nazi feminism that are like, oh, I'll just do it myself. And that's separation consciousness. That's not true feminism. That's not true empowerment. So just to let you guys know, this isn't like, oh, Theresa's back with the twin flame tribe. No, I mean, are there twins on this planet? Yes. Have I put some into union? I have guided them and helped them do some healing work, but that isn't where I'm stuck. I'm not one of those people in this lifetime that just stays on one particular path. There's lots of different things I'm doing all at once. So some of you really like to pigeonhole yourselves and others. And it also lets me know, like, if you're projecting on me, you're projecting on others around you, you're projecting on who you think your twin is. And this is something that I understand is probably going to upset some people, but it's like, I feel the need to get on here and mention, no, I'm not doing twin flame work specifically, or because a lot of you are knee deep in separation consciousness, and that is physically painful for somebody who carries the templates within them for unity consciousness. That's the 12th ray of light. That's the rainbow ray. That's the ray where all the sacred geometry comes from. That's where your creator angels come from. That's where people like me are born into. So because we have access to all of the rays of light of creation. There are not many on the planet who have access to that. So it's interesting because I can tell what ray of light you're from based on the, issues you're having in your life. So, and the patterns, and a lot of them there's a lot of blue rays here on the planet because about 25,000 years ago, there were major wars on Mars and a different planet, and there was a very destructive blue ray race that, because Mars used to be a healing planet, and people were coming in and infiltrating that area of the universe and trying to stop some healing from happening. And so when some of those races essentially destroyed Mars, we helped petition the people of the earth to say, and specifically into Lemuria, and said, would you mind if we brought these people here? Your current trajectory on the planet is not a blue ray lesson in terms of abuse of power, abuse of the masculine paradigm, abuse of the feminine paradigm. These people have destroyed now more than one planet, and Mars had turned into like a nuclear war zone. It was fried. And so we had all these souls on planets, on different ships, and which is why you hear people talk about these stories, is because they're remembering, which is why they've had settlements going back. And why they have, people trying to go back there now. And I mean, just to be honest with you, you can tune in and see if stuff's there already if you have, the ability to meditate. But that's getting off subject. But about 25,000 years ago, and that's when you start to see like the fall of Lemuria, and then moving a lot of those souls over to Atlantis, and they further destroyed Atlantis, and then there was the creation of the Sphinx. So, this is all paraphrasing. These are all things I remember, but where we would move things from, and there's a lot of fog coming in from the volcano on a different island, which is what's causing some of the throat stuff to come up. But, because as some of you know, the volcano's, taken off, because that's, the crystalline core of the planet's been activated, and so we've got a lot of different things that are being caused as physical issues here, with the Ring of Fire being activated and things like that. But essentially we've moved that civilization around several different times, ended up in Egypt and things like that, and so I recognize the stories. I know where the scrolls are with all the information and things like that, and there are people here who remember that, but they're digging for them now, but they're never going to find them, and because they're so heavily protected. They've gotten close, but again, it's like that, there's levels of protection around that information because people are wanting to use it for nefarious reasons, and they'll never find it until the planet is in alignment with that and is of a high enough vibration, which could happen in the next few years, but I don't know. It's personally up to humanity. So for those of you that are like, oh, it's been a long time, and I'm just like, no, please take your twin flame junk somewhere else. Like, do twin flames exist? Yes. For those who believe that they don't, they are most likely what are called a mahu, which are people that never, further are experiencing like the polarity of masculinity and femininity. And so there's, I think, 3 individuals I've bumped into my whole life. There's one here on the island where you can really sense that they're like a true mahu. And by mahu, it doesn't mean like homosexual. It's although that's what it typically gets misrepresented as, because people don't know what they're talking about. They're not checking in with their intuition to see if that word is actually what it means. They're just using and parroting things. They call it, they say in spirituality that angels are like, there's a bunch of parrots around that are just sharing words. So there was a point in time where the twin flame agenda that was true and pure was good, but I knew that it was about to be infiltrated, and they were like, you need to get out now. You need to pull out of that. Your work is meant for much bigger than that, and get into working with the rays of light, and working with people who actually want to ascend, not people that are obsessed with a certain individual, because I don't know, that's just a very, very unhealthy subject. It brings up all of the obstacles to love, to source, to all of those things, and working with people that were constantly angry, inbred blue rays. I was like, no more of that. Like I didn't sign up for this for people to, project their stuff. So again, that's why it's, this will only resonate with like certain people. So please be careful where you're projecting. Please be careful with, labels and things like that, because Spirit is like, just drop the labels. And I mean, there are certain times within vocabulary you need words to be able to describe stuff, but it's really sweet. Like the angels know how much that word is upsetting, because as somebody who's helped create humanity here and create this portion of the universe, it is always tough to see the light being abused, to see things miscreated, which humans here of the lower species tend to do. So, sorry about that. We got a little distracted by a phone call that came in that I could not wait on. It is not ideal for me to stop what I was talking about for this phone call, but this phone call was important. So basically, a main thing is I really care about what's happening on this planet. Like, there are people here that are like your genetic triple great grandmothers who are here, that some of you are highly disrespectful towards. I see some of them on YouTube. I recognize them. But my main thing is, there are some that are going through the really tough life lessons around personal power, boundaries, their anger, their communication, a lot of, Blu-ray kind of issues that are really particularly intense. So, like, after, Atlantis and then Egypt and then spreading all over the place, like, there ended up being, like, subcultures of abuse of power. So at first, like, when those souls were here, and it was a large group of Blu-ray and indigo subspecies of Blu-ray, which is a whole nother history that I won't get into. With a lot of that, at first they were like, oh, we won't abuse our power, we'll be good. That lasted for just a little while, because then you see certain things that got destroyed, and it's so you tend to see some of the original souls going, this is not what it's meant to be. So basically, they're trying to get, we ended up with, like, there's a misinterpretation where women are like using the same old paradigm to abuse the masculine, therefore abusing themselves and not knowing it. My friend calls them the, feminazis, which is kind of funny, because it's not what true feminism is. It's a misinterpretation of it. But essentially, we ended up with what people call the patriarchal paradigm, where there was the abuse of the feminine. Now, these souls signed up for this, and some of them did not, but a lot of them did. It's a miscreation that ended up here. There was a pattern of the Blu-rays that got here to this planet, and other, races that were here. So anyway, I don't often talk about these stories, but these weren't empowered men doing this. This wasn't an empowered divine masculine. This wasn't an empowered feminine. the empowered feminine wouldn't have allowed it. And this is why, like, when you started to see it turn around, Jesus embodied the feminine, and his counterpart, Mary Magdalene, embodied the masculine. Which is why when I see males running around, I've seen a couple of people that are like, oh, I'm the embodiment of Jesus, and they're super masculine. I'm like, dude, this dude has no idea what they're talking about. You can sense that frequency anyway. A lot of imposter energy, because it doesn't win out after all. But my main point is, I forgot my train of thought, but the masculine essentially was abusing itself. Oh yeah, so Jesus said, thank you. Jesus is back. He's like, back to the story. Jesus was one of the first ones. We were going to send women in about 2,000 years ago to help shift things back, because we're at the end of a cycle where all these souls are getting off the planet that we brought in about 25,000 years ago, because we're ending that cycle of the abuse of personal power. And this is why you have these rainbow rays coming in that are inheriting the earth and creating something completely new. And for some people who don't finish their karmic cycles, they're going to end up somewhere else. That's that's for them to deal with. There's other places to deal with that. So when, if we were going to bring in, like, there's been feminine avatars on the planet. There's been groups, like with Kuan Yin, there were a group of women there's been powerful women in pockets, like groups of women like Athena in the 96, and you see Kuan Yin, who had a group of women in the Himalayas who all ascended together. You've got that, but if they were on a worldwide stage, because these groups were highly protected, and oracles and things like that, and they still ended up abused for some of them throughout time. However, if they had just had a bunch of women come in, instead of Jesus, it would not have gotten as far as it did. And so I remember being part of a huge collective of hundreds of people who came together to write the soul contract for Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and those of us coming in to incarnate around it. And this is a lot of soul history in here, but it's just like, sometimes it really irritates me when people say stupid things, because it's just like, please don't. You're showing off that you're a teenager, essentially. And everybody has their path, but there's a difference between being a teenager and knowing it spiritually, and being a teenager and pretending that, you're the professor. That stuff, it's just like, can we just shut that down? Like, it's just so patronizing. So essentially, Jesus and Mary Magdalene did as much as they possibly could to bring in and re-establish the divine feminine frequencies on the planet. Now, there were a lot of times it wasn't even a high enough frequency on the planet for what are called the archaea, or the archaea, which are the feminine archangels, to be identified here on the planet, or the feminine ascended masters and goddesses and that sort of thing. And now it's a different time for that, and now I've got to take another break. Sorry. Maybe at some point we'll be able to finish this story. I think it's kind of signifying the metaphors for where there's like breaks in history, or where people have, there's been breaks in truth and that sort of thing. But either way, I'm on here because it's like, sometimes people will not be able to see the truth of the light that you are. They see as much as they want to see. And so, yeah, basically something else that they've been touching base on is bringing the feminine back in an empowered fashion. And there's several different ways that they go about doing that. So something that they asked me to do, and I really hesitated with this recent energy update because I knew it was going to kick up the dust and attract a bunch of the crazies that, buy into the dark side of the twin flame agenda. Are there twins here? Yes. Are there twins coming together? Yes. There's the most successful ones don't ever use that label. They don't care about it. They're not stuck on it, and it'll be sweet because sometimes Spirit will say to me, will use different creative words to let me know that they're like counterparts if I'm working with people like that are truly that. And I think it makes people angry when I mention sometimes that people aren't, because people just want love so badly and don't know how to go about getting it. You know, and there's ways to go about doing that, and there's people that can work with you in that, but I work with a different tier of angelic types. So getting back to the story, there are people that are attempting to bring the feminine templates back in and bring in the proper masculine templates back in, and there's a huge amount of women that are judging men, and the men can feel that in the collective, and it is highly uncomfortable for them. And I feel for them, and there's still a slight abuse of the feminine coming on, you know, like where you still, you know, see some of that. There's still, you know, abuse of the feminine going on, but it's the part of the reason why things are so rocky on the planet right now is because a lot of that's coming to the light to get like sifted to the surface. So it's just sort of like it's getting cleared. Some people want to focus on the negative and focus on the problem instead of focusing on the solution and seeing what's truly happening. There are some people that can truly see what it is that's happening and can get into like the Akashic records of humanity and see what's happening. Like there's differences in consciousness, and I'll give you an example. Like sometimes somebody will call and say, well, what's my timeline for this? And it's like, well, that's based on free will choice, your thoughts, words, deeds, creation. Like people who think that they understand manifestation really well, we're all manifesting all the time. But they say that they know what it is about manifestation, yet they're coming to me asking for timelines at times. And I'm like, that's one stream of consciousness, and sometimes it's appropriate to ask, like, what are the current timelines? I don't answer those questions. There are people that do ask them. There are people that provide that based on your current trajectory. However, it changes day to day based on your thoughts and your words and your actions and your deeds. And particularly if there's more than one person involved. It can delay it, it can speed it up. Some things could take 9 months, 9 years, 9 lifetimes, and sometimes it changes in an instant. It's all based on your free will choice. You have that ability. You choose your life lessons right now. This is a different kind of lifetime compared to others where you've spent lifetime after lifetime going through or spending like 80 years working through in a particular situation. And there were lifetimes where you'd only live 40 years because you would just be having one life lesson for 40 years. It wasn't needed to go through that for 80, so people didn't necessarily live longer. It wasn't just like health reasons. But yeah, I mean, other things to get into there. Oh yeah, so the higher perspective is somebody may ask, what is the timeline? And I'll be like, well, that's based on how you're manifesting. Ooh, tell me more about that. The empowered soul will ask, how can I take responsibility for that? How can I shift that? What can I do differently? It's like the students, and some of you were trained to make fun of other people that were really interested in learning subjects and to dive deep into those subjects. That's part of an agenda. So some of you would not want to learn new things. And then you've got your overachievers, but you've got people that say, well, how can I do that? And so you end up sharing with them, well, you're getting to create your reality in any given moment. And that's truly why, like, if you come to me and you tell your positive stories, it's gonna manifest. That's why even with my friends, I don't allow them to share with me any negative stories or their problems, or you don't get to come to me and just complain because you're gonna be manifesting more of it, and I don't want that for anybody, and I don't want to listen to it because it's heavy. So a big, a lighter thing is to come to me and say, okay, let's have these manifestation powwows, and you just talk about what it is that you want to experience and have in your life. It's so much more light filled, and it's a new form of healing where you get to talk about what it is you do want. All the rays of light are present, all the beings of light are present. Sometimes these things manifest before the end of the session, sometimes they manifest within 30 days. It's prominent, and Saint Germain's talked about it for a long time. You got to focus on what the positive is. It's sort of like, where do you want the planet to go? That's what you focus on. Where do you want your life to be at? That's what you focus on. That's what you envision. That's what you say. It seems pretty basic, but there's some people that kind of want to fight taking the responsibility. So for a long time, there's been fate on this planet that kept people protected. And covering a lot of subjects in this video, but it's just sort of like, sometimes I'm just like, there are people that are really awakened to this already, and then there's other people that kind of want to learn more and hear more about it. So the trajectory of the planet is going pretty fast, and there's a lot of stuff being brought up, which is why there's things like self-care, and they were like, we need you to do a self-care reading for these people at a lower price point, so that they can get in to work with you. This is why right now on the planet, men are going through it, if you watched my energy update. And so we all have the divine masculine within us that need healing. This isn't like, ooh, my twin needs to go get healing. No, that isn't an enlightened being. That's just judgment and working through, again, a Blu-ray lesson. And it's just, it's hard for me as somebody who feels so much love for people to watch. It's like physically painful to be around some of those individuals, and I'm just like, moths to the flame. Sometimes moths are just attracted to the light. So but yeah, that's why, Jesus and Mary Magdalene did as much as they could, and that's why I do work for bringing in higher relationship templates for people to remember and recode the DNA and get back to, or raise up to, like a higher frequency, so that you can embody that, so that you can experience that, instead of just talking about it or ad-libbing or being a parrot. Not everybody is, but those are the ones that annoy me, because that's why I don't hang out with a bunch of spiritualists and things like that. That's because it's just, as somebody who knows the truth, if it's one thing, but there's a lot of spiritual ego around, oh, well, I know this, that, and the other, or what's your interpretation? I'm like, I couldn't care less. Personally, I don't have a personal interpretation. If you want to hear what the beings of light have to say, if you want to hear what the Akashic Records have to say, I'm happy to share. But otherwise, like a personal opinion isn't, that's something different. So I just, it's interesting. Like on Instagram and social media, you'll have all these quotes, and as somebody who sees truth and subconscious limiting beliefs, a lot of people are posting those limiting beliefs as if they are universal truths, and I just cringe, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, this person just posted to their clientele subconsciously that they hate rich people and have 30,000 likes, and then they have 30,000 likes because there's 30,000 people resonating with hating rich people, and I'm just like, oh God. And it's messy to watch. Life is kind of messy, but yeah, that's kind of the situation. But essentially, we're getting a lot of these people ascended and off the planet, and it's just the spiritual ego, and like getting a comment like, "Ooh, welcome back. Haven't heard from you in a while," and I'm like, I never went anywhere. Like, if you still watch the energy updates, it's still, interesting. It's just, it's for a higher vibe. And everybody has the divine masculine within them. And, the men are going through it right now. And this is everybody. This is a human collective. This isn't, just twins and, ooh, welcome back. I'm like, you're projecting like a boss right now. Like, please stop. You're not as enlightened as you think. It's like the people that I find who are kind and calm and don't ever, they don't feel comfortable on YouTube channels or, things like that. And some of us have gotten used to it because we've been asked to do it. you know, and it's a lifetime where we can speak about it. So, so now, sorry for the interruptions and things like that, but it's like, if I refer to the divine masculine, you know, it doesn't have to do, like, twins is a very small portion of that. We all have that within us. We all have the divine feminine within us. It's, you've got to, you know, open your eyes a little bit and your ears, and because there's some people that are just not as awakened as they think, and it just, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of people that are, you know, doing channels and things starting to speak up a little bit about it, about the entitlement, about thinking that you've got the right to, you know, bash people who come on here and do, who speak truth, who, just because somebody doesn't like it, that's their problem, or because I decide I'm not going to work with somebody who's angry, or because there's a, you know, a higher vibe group of people. You know, I didn't come on here to suffer. I didn't agree to doing this work to suffer. That's somebody else's truth. That's not, you know. But anyway, that's kind of some history of stuff that's happening on the planet. Not all of it do I sort of disclose, but there's, people know a lot more than what they typically say. And so you're seeing right now a lot of shifts in channels here and people in their work and just showing more of their shadow aspect. Like one of my friends who has a prominent tarot channel, she's like, and you can feel it in the tarot collective of people that are doing cards are just like either doing more and more and more readings because they're competitive and they've got a lack mentality, even though they may have 100,000 followers. A friend of mine has 260,000 followers, and she just said, all I do weekly are these tarot readings. And she said, in my private practice, all I'm doing are space clearings and dealing with you know, spiritual cleansing, like that heavy duty stuff. Only Blu-rays of a certain order are, because there's a family tree for souls through certain rays of light, and there's reasons why, like, races is another word for rays, and there are reasons why there is an agenda to have different races of colors of people to hate one another, to, you know, and call things cultural appropriation and things like that, to create separation. And some people are not able to see it. And I'm like, okay. So it takes an extraordinary amount of patience for someone who sees it, and it's like, all right, just let them do it. But I have to walk away a lot of times from conversations where people think they know, and I'm just like, it's frustrating because people don't always want to know the truth. They, you know, want to be angry, and that's where they're at, and that's okay. But it's, as a truth teller, I'm just careful what conversations I get into and who I hang around, and because just as much as you have to be responsible for the energy you put out, you are equally responsible for the energy that you keep around you, and those are the people around you, and those are the clients that you work with, and those are the people you work around and things like that. So you are responsible for that. You are responsible for whether or not you want to work with a higher tribe, or whether or not you want to work with, you know, a lower tribe, and try and fit yourself into that because it's uncomfortable. But there's a lot of channels that are starting to show, like, hey, I'm tired of coming on here and be all happy, joy for you, you know, and starting to show, like, more of their true colors and more authenticity and things like that. So, which I really welcome. As somebody who could always sense it, and I can see it, and I'm just like, just let your freak flag show. Like, you know, it's okay that you cross stuff into the light. Like, just let people know that that's what you do. And so my friend got on, and she's like, channel's changing. I'm not doing weekly readings anymore. I'm doing them monthly. And oh, by the way, I do this work over here, so my channel's going this direction. And you know, she's scared of losing half of her following and things like that. But it's just like, even if you do, you find the ones that are truly of your tribe, people who really resonate with the truth and not the bullshit. Because there are some people that want to resonate with the BS because they're just lost and they don't know the difference, and they're so scared that they're coming into spiritual ego and going, oh, well, I do know, and I'm just looking at you and I'm like, I love you, but you're so lost. Not that you're ever off your path, but it's just like, all right, you're at a certain level to be able to work with certain people. You always attract the kind of teacher that it is that you want to work with. You'll come across them. With teachers, you attract the clients that you want to work with, and then you also attract your lesson people and people that are just attracted to the light and who are not, your tribe. So that's why a lot of people screen. It's a self-care practice. So, this stuff is to be of service. There's a lot of big things coming up. Some of my angel blessings are changing because, like, my healing work is different. I don't have to sit with you for 40 minutes. You don't have to lay back for 40 minutes. It's a nice experience for you, or for some people like to feel that, but it only takes me a minute or two to send healing to you. I can do one sentence and you receiving healing every single day for 30 days. Like, it's easy for me. I work with these beings of light that have shown me, like, you don't have to do it the normal human way. So I'm creating some stuff for you guys where you can just purchase it and you're instantly receiving these healings. I don't even have to be present. I can just set the intention that when somebody purchases it, that they receive certain rays of light and certain beings of light are present with them. Intention and the mind are very strong, and it's why I've been able to heal cancer in an instant with myself. There's, you just decide, like, I've done that with several things, like, with my own self and with people that I care about, and it's just simple. And, so yeah, I'm working on some fun things, but self-care is a huge thing, and they were like, offer them the self-care readings, and the right people will be attracted to it. So this is the sorts of things that I have to talk about. And yes, this influx of blue rays and indigos are getting off the planet. And some people say, oh, well, they're the most enlightened on the planet. No, they're the ones that also came here and destroyed. So part of that group. So it's just, it's interesting. So I just needed to get some of that off of my chest. It's like, be careful who you project to, because sometimes you're showing that you're a teenager when you're pretending to be the professor. And the people who are on the professor route or post-PhD route are the more humble ones that don't always know. It's like the beautiful girl that doesn't know she's beautiful sometimes, or she doesn't know how beautiful she is. She just knows she's receiving a lot of attention. Or I'll have certain people that show up and the angels are doing a lot of healing in the group session specifically for them. And that person will say, well, why are they choosing me? Like, there's a certain purity of heart. It's not the people that have the spiritual ego. And I will tell you that. And that's okay. Sometimes that's protecting people, because it's just how much they're supposed to know. So some of this is going to resonate for you. Some of it is not. And any negative, comments will be deleted, and you will be blocked from this channel if you decide to get negative. But it's like, there's a reason why I was careful with the energy update talking about partnership, because people are projecting that it's all about twin flame stuff. And I'm like, that is your little tiny universe. That is your little tiny thing where you are blocking out light. Not everybody, but blocking out, like, this entire plethora of light. And some people just want to see this little bit. And I'm like, please wake up. And people aren't as woke as they think. There is going to be a huge collective shift within the next 2.5 to 5 years. And that's when it's going to get even more interesting. And this is why your self-care tips are important now. Like, fate is out of the window here within the next 1.5 years. Some people are already experiencing that, which is why, like, where I live now, there's a lot of people that are uncomfortable because they haven't gotten all of their thoughts straight, and so they are manifesting some of the things that they don't want. and they haven't realized, oh, well, it's up to God. It's more complicated than that. It's about alignment with your heart alignment with what it is that you want as a frequency, taking care of your thoughts and your words and your actions. Fate now is what you create. And so, fate was something where it was set in stone. Terms of timelines and people and situations didn't change, and free will choice was less of an influence, and people weren't exercising it as much, and it was a form of protection to keep people from miscreating, because there was that much miscreation over the past 25,000 years. It's nice to be able to share the truth and just be I don't know, just to share. I'm not really interested with conflicting point of views at this point. It's just, I love it when people of my tribe, particularly of the 7 on my frequency that are here, that get on and they share this stuff, and they I watch it because I know exactly what's happening, and some of them are just sort of, some will do it in a more humorous, less direct fashion of making funny videos about spiritualists and things like that, and I'm like, I see what they're doing. People go and laugh, and it's the very people that are behaving in that way that are going and laughing, and I'm just like, and we joke behind the scenes going, they're gonna wake up at some point, to what's happening. It's just, it's funny. It's an interesting role to be in. So, but the plan is getting better, and I'm excited for and people talk about the rainbow children, and they don't even know, that is the 12th ray of light. There's a reason why, there's that ray that's filled the room, and there's a huge group of them trying to come in. Huge group, but because of birth control and, foods people eat and things like that, they went back in time and created pesticides and things like that to keep women from being able to be fertile. So that is, there are some interesting projects I'm getting into that I will be working with a small group of women who really want to, in the beginning anyway, who really want to bring in these higher frequency children who feel called. And there's a reason why some women are having children now in their 40s, and it's because we had to get the frequency to a certain point where these children could come in. We're going to see higher number multiples and births and things like that, and that's because that higher frequency had to get anchored for them to be able to come in. But women have to detox their bodies, and there's a number of things that need to be done, and so there's going to be a small group of women that I'm going to work with to help get their wombs ready. And what's interesting is it affects their abundance as well. So their fertility and their abundance and their ability to conceive. And it's something I've played with that's had a 100% success rate in terms of helping women's bodies relax so that they can conceive. And it's just something I do behind the scenes. I don't tend to talk too much about. And but anyway, that's something I'll announce at a later date when I'm ready, probably sometime in June. But anyway, sending you guys lots of love. I hope this video resonates. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. If you don't like it, just get the hell up off my channel. Don't even bother with a dislike, because those who dislike it are the people who are not here for truth. And some people might not like the delivery, but it's just, there's some frustration that comes with watching ignorance sometimes, and it's just, that's not the truth of who people are. So anyway, it's awakening. Have a great week. Thank you for listening. Bye.